Unexpected heartwarming expose. Billionaire's wife discovers shocking photos. Family dynamics, It was a sweltering summer afternoon in the quaint town of Maplewood when Margaret slipped into the attic, seeking refuge from both the heat and the whispers that surrounded her. As the wife of Michael, the self-made billionaire, she often felt like a piece of furniture in a room where no one acknowledged her presence. Today, curiosity tugged at her heart, and her yearning for connection drove her fingers to rummage through the attic's collection of dust. She felt like an archaeologist, hoping to uncover a part of her husband's history that would finally connect her to this town that felt so foreign. Then, there it was, a dusty shoebox hidden beneath moth-eaten blankets. She lifted the lid and her breath caught in her throat. Inside, sepia-toned photographs spilled out like a forgotten treasure chest. Each image told a story of Michael as a young man, smiling with residents in the old diner, or racing in potato sack contests at the school fair. The flickering snapshots highlighted a boy who seemed so much more alive, so much more real than she had ever seen. The discovery pricked her heart with pride and pain. Why had he never shared these moments? As the laughter echoed from the images, a shadow of understanding settled in. These were the very people who now regarded her with skepticism. She gathered the photos into her arms, her heart racing with conflicting emotions. Here was the town's history intertwined with her husband's past. She knew she had to confront him. "Michael," she said, eyes wide with both affection and fear. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" They stood in their sun-soaked living room, sunlight streaming through the windows, illuminating the space while casting shadows on hidden truths. He looked at her, the weight of expectation pressing heavily on his shoulders. I thought you'd be safer this way," he murmured, a hint of regret in his voice. "After the family scandal, after everything that happened, I didn't want to drag you into it." His words settled like lead, heavy but laced with care. The yearning for acceptance in the community pulsed through her veins, nearly tangible. But the townsfolk were cautious, their warm smiles swiftly replaced by doubt after she dared to step outside their bubble. When she decided to attend the 4th of July festival, hope glimmered in her heart. Yet, as fireworks lit the night sky, whispers started swirling, their tones sharp, slicing through the festive cheer. The air thickened. A confrontation erupted, hurtful words like shards of glass being hurled her way. "Is she just pretending to care now?" echoed the voices. Margaret felt trapped between two worlds, her heart heavy with the burden of her loyalty to Michael and her longing to belong among the townsfolk. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she stood, the fireworks bursting in brilliant colors above, her mind whirled. What was the truth of love and acceptance in a town split by wealth and past grievances? But it was then that she overheard it. A hushed conversation that pinched her heart, echoing the very scandal that had once torn apart Michael's family. With uncertainty gripping her, she faced a choice: remain loyal to Michael, or seek a connection with the community she so desperately wished to be a part of. As the colorful fireworks washed over the crowd, illuminating faces full of hope and doubt, Margaret wondered if she truly could bridge the gap. Could love withstand the weight of their shared past? Margaret's heart raced as she processed the whispers fluttering around her like the fireworks overhead. Each word, sharp and biting, felt like a personal wound. She'll never fit in. Just a trophy wife. What does she really know about us? It all crashed down like a wave, reminding her of just how alone she felt in this vast crowd. She wanted to be part of them, to link arms and share laughter, but all she was met with were skeptical stares. Gathering the photos tightly against her chest, she turned to Michael. His face held a mixture of worry and determination, eyes searching for her reassurance. But her chest felt heavy, all too reminiscent of this town's weighty judgments. Michael, how could you think that keeping this hidden would protect me? Her voice trembled, caught somewhere between anger and hurt. You should have trusted me. I want to understand your past. Our past. I want to be a part of this community. He sighed deeply, a sound filled with regret, as if he were wrestling with demons she could not see. It's not just about the past, he said softly. The rumors, the accusations, they're rooted deep in who my family was. I didn't want you to see me through that lens, I thought. Maybe time would heal those wounds. Time? That's your answer? Her heart ached for him, but she felt him slipping away like sand through her fingers. You can't hide from this, Michael. It's here. It's all around us. Margaret longed to shake him out of his fear, to make him see the beauty and vulnerability, the freedom of sharing one's burdens. Just then, a burst of bright blue lights exploded in the sky, drawing their attention. But it was not the fireworks that captured her focus. It was the way the light reflected in his eyes, revealing the little boy captured in sepia. A boy who once danced freely, unburdened by the whispers of a townsfolk who cared deeply about appearances. As more fireworks erupted, her heart pointed in a new direction. What if we faced this together? She proposed, every ounce of hope lining her voice. What if we went back to the diner, to the places in those photos? We can show them who you truly are. We can open the door to the past and let the light in. His eyes flickered with a mix of fear and contemplation. You really want to? He asked, the vulnerability of the moment hanging like the fading lights above. More than anything, she assured him, stepping closer, feeling the thickness of both their fears melding into an unexpected alliance. I'm ready to fight for us, Michael. For our future. For the love we deserve. As thoughts of going back swirled in her mind, she imagined the laughter now facing them, the potential for understanding and forgiveness. It felt monumental, yet painfully fragile, as fleeting as the fireworks above. But just then, a shout from nearby cut through the air. Look at that! A crowd surged toward the food stalls, heads turning and faces lighting up like the sky. Did you hear about the reunion coming up? The whole town is supposed to show up. Margaret felt her stomach drop. A reunion? That would mean all of Maplewood together. Old grudges resurfacing and stories spilling out into the open. Michael, she whispered, gripped by a sudden urgency. If we're going to do this, it has to be now. What if the reunion brings everything to the surface? We should face it and face them. He hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his face like the last spark of a firework. Could they really confront the ghosts of Michael's past together, in front of everyone? Would the love they shared be enough to let them triumph over the shadows looming ahead? The sky began to dim, but a different sort of light sparked in Margaret's heart. It was a light demanding to be shared, a light that could drown out the whispers if only they dared to shine it brightly. Are you with me? She asked, eyes locking onto his, waiting for his answer, both terrified and exhilarated by the path that awaited them. Michael took a deep breath, the weight of her words hanging in the air like the fading echoes of fireworks. He looked around at the jubilant crowd, laughter ringing out and people stirring with excitement. But in that moment, all he could see was the heaviness of the memories wrapped in those photos. What do you think they'll say? He asked, doubt creeping into his voice. What if they never change? What if they don't see the real me but only the boy from that past? Margaret moved closer, her fingers brushing against his. Then it's our job to help them see. We can't change what's happened, but we can rewrite how your story ends, together. This is our chance, Michael. He met her gaze, and in that second, the walls he had built started to crack. She was right. If they were going to confront the ghosts that haunted him, they had to do it boldly. Taking another determined breath, he nodded slowly. Okay, let's do it. Let's go back. The decision hung in the air, charged with a strange blend of fear and courage. As they made their way through the thrumming crowd, Margaret felt a swell of pride. Michael, for the first time, was allowing himself to hope. When they reached the diner, Margaret's heart raced. The neon sign buzzed overhead, casting a warm glow on the familiar scene. The round tables, the linoleum floor that had seen better days, and the bar where locals gathered for coffee and gossip. "Are you ready?" she asked, squeezing his hand tightly, her heart pounding in sync with his. "Ready as I'll ever be," he murmured, though a flicker of concern still danced in his eyes. They stepped inside, and the familiar scent of fresh pies mixed with the sharp smell of brewed coffee hit them instantly. The chatter quieted a notch, curious eyes turning their way. Margaret's throat constricted. She could feel the weight of judgment, but she stood tall, gripping Michael's hand as if anchoring him to her side. "Hey, look who decided to show up!" a voice rang out. It was Clara, the diner's owner, with her warm smile only slightly hiding the skepticism beneath. "Michael, long time no see." "Hi, Clara," he replied, his voice steady despite the tremor in his palms. "Where have you been hiding?" She wiggled her eyebrows, trying to coax a smile out of him. But Margaret noticed the way Clara's gaze shifted to Margaret, sizing her up. Then, as if they'd rehearsed it, a couple of patrons began whispering amongst themselves. "I heard she's just here for the money. Does she even know him?" Margaret's heart sank, and she felt like a fragile piece of art being scrutinized under fluorescent lights, but Michael stepped squarely into the storm. "I'm here with Margaret. We're facing this head-on." Murmurs danced through the room, sharper than knives. "Facing what?" someone shouted, cutting through the thick tension. "Everything," he declared, his voice rising over the din. "My past, our relationship, the truth. I won't hide anymore, and neither will she." In that moment, Margaret realized how much courage it took for him to claim his story, to ask for space in a world that was quick to judge. Then, she felt a spark of determination ignite within her. This wasn't just about Michael anymore. It was about the both of them. She took a step forward. "And we want to share that with all of you. It's time for honesty instead of whispers." The uneasy silence held for a heartbeat longer before shifting into whispers again. But this time, Margaret could feel the energy changing, curiosity mixing with apprehension. There was a glimmer of hope, but suddenly, a loud voice called from the corner of the diner. "So, what's the big secret?" A man with a familiar face stood up, a scowl etched onto his features. "What do you really think you can change after all this time?" The tension thickened. Margaret and Michael exchanged glances, determination flickering in their eyes. This was it, the moment that would either shatter them or solidify them. Could they withstand the storm of old rivalries and painful memories? Would this bold declaration lead to healing or more hurt? As the man's words hung in the air, a new chapter was about to begin. Michael's gaze darted to the man who had spoken, feeling a pulse of frustration surge through him. He recognized Alex instantly, the one person who had never shied away from throwing him under the bus. It was an uncomfortable reminder of the past he'd fought so hard to escape. "Change isn't easy, Alex," Michael finally replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "But it's possible, if we give it a chance." Alex crossed his arms, a smirk playing on his lips. "Oh, really? Like you're just going to waltz in here and change everyone's mind? What do you think this is, some kind of fairy tale?" Margaret could see the cracks behind Michael's resolve. This was the very reason he had hesitated for so long. Old wounds were surfacing, and the ridicule was like a dark cloud momentarily overshadowing their fragile light. "Maybe it is a fairy tale," she interjected, her voice clear. "The kind where the hero confronts his demons instead of hiding away, and to do that, he needs support, not judgment." Murmurs trickled through the diner again, the weight of both her words and Michael's truth hanging in the air. Angry whispers buzzed with doubt, but amidst the noise, Margaret felt a flicker of something else, a sense of belonging. "Everyone in this room has a story," she continued, fueled by a mix of confidence and nerves. "A struggle. You've all seen it in Michael, and we're here to own it, not run from it." She turned back to Michael, whose expression softened. "Together," he echoed, gripping her hand tighter. And just like that, the tension shifted. Though the room was still thick with disbelief, a ripple of unease replaced the sharpness. People leaned in closer, curious despite their skepticism. "Fine then," Alex scoffed, but there was a crack in his bravado. "Let's hear the story. If it's so easy to change, let's see how you plan to do it." Michael's heart hammered against his chest. The spotlight suddenly felt scorching but also invigorating. This wasn't just about proving a point. It felt like a chance to set the record straight. "I grew up feeling like I had to live up to everyone else's expectations. I had people whispering about me, labeling me. It was suffocating." Margaret squeezed his hand, her encouragement energizing him. "I left to escape, to find out who I really am. But I ran away from the truth. It's taken me years to come to terms with my past," Michael continued, his voice gaining strength. "I made mistakes. I hurt people. But I'm not that boy anymore. I'm someone who wants to be honest about what happened, about the journey it's taken me to get here." "What makes you think anyone cares?" Alex challenged, shaking his head. "Most are here for the show, not a therapy session." But Michael pressed on, his voice unwavering. "Maybe not everyone cares, but I do. I care about Margaret, and I care about becoming the person I was meant to be. I won't let my past dictate my future. I'll shape it with the choices I make now." The diners watched in silence, absorbing his words. Margaret held her breath, feeling the intensity swell in the room. The world outside the diner seemed to vanish, leaving only the space between them, a crack in the dam of judgment. "I don't expect you all to forgive me right away, or even accept me," Michael concluded, a glimmer of vulnerability in his eyes. "But we have a chance here to be better, together." The air hung thick as people exchanged glances. Behind him, Clara looked thoughtful, her eyes darting between Michael and the murmuring crowd. "Leave the past where it belongs, and embrace the future," someone from the back finally called, an unexpected voice rising against the tide of disbelief. Margaret's heart lifted at this spark of shared human connection. But before they could build on this, Alex shouted back, "And what if your future is just another mistake? What makes you so special?" Michael inhaled deeply. He sensed the door had cracked open, but the battle was far from over. "I'll show you," he replied quietly, determination burning in his eyes. As the weight of anticipation thickened, the question loomed. Could he turn the tide in his favor, or would old adversaries drown him in the attempt? This was more than a confrontation. It was the beginning of something deeper, a reckoning that could either bridge past pains or break them apart completely. Where would they all stand when the dust settled? Michael felt the weight of every gaze in the diner. They were all watching, waiting. He glanced around and saw the faces that had once held fear or disdain. A few now looked hopeful, others skeptical, and Alex, his ever-present shadow, remained defiantly critical. There was a stillness in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, feeling Margaret's warmth beside him. She was his anchor, the reason he felt brave enough to stand there, bearing his soul. "Let me ask you this," he said, his voice rising above the murmurs. "What if we're all just one mistake away from being that person we're ashamed of? What if I'm not the only one who has struggled?" This question lingered in the air. Clara leaned forward, her expression changing from curiosity to something softer, perhaps regret. "We've all had our battles," she finally said. "What makes you stand out?" Challenge echoed in her voice, but there was also an invitation, a chance for connection. Michael locked eyes with her. "Because I'm trying to own mine. Isn't that what we all need to do?" Margaret squeezed his hand tighter. "This isn't just about Michael. It's about all of us. Being honest. The mistakes we make don't define who we are unless we let them. We can choose to move forward or stay trapped in our past." A wave of murmurs rolled through the diner. Hesitation mixed with realization. Michael could feel the battle shifting. Each word was a brick in the wall he was trying to dismantle. Then, Alex's scoffing split the air like thunder. "But what if you fail again? You think they're going to stick around for another round of disappointment?" "Maybe not," Michael replied. The conviction in his voice startled him. "But I won't stop trying. Not this time." With a quick glance at Margaret, he could already sense the trust blooming between them, a lifeline in the storm. She was the light guiding him when everything felt dark. "I was afraid of being rejected," Michael continued, "afraid of people knowing who I was. But I've realized it's okay not to be perfect. Life is messy. If we can support each other, we can find a new way forward. Together." He could see the look on some faces begin to shift, curiosity replaced by vulnerability. Clara spoke again, quieter this time. "What about facing the consequences of our mistakes? Can we really just move on?" "Facing them is all part of the journey," Michael asserted. "But that doesn't mean we have to do it alone. We can lean on one another through the hardships. That's how we grow." For a moment, silence enveloped the diner. Then a small voice broke through, timid yet hopeful. I think I want to try." The ripple of agreement spread like wildfire, gathering strength. A murmur of, "Me too," echoed through the tables. Michael couldn't help but feel a spark of hope ignite within him. Alex's expression darkened, frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. "You think a few kind words and a little support make it easier?" Michael met his gaze with unwavering intensity. "Not easier. Possible. And possible is a start." Just then, the diner's door swung open, an unexpected gust of wind bringing in a stranger. Everyone turned. The newcomer paused, taking in the scene unfolding. Michael felt a fresh quiver of anxiety. Would this uninvited guest break the moment? Or perhaps change everything? "Is this the meeting for healing?" the stranger asked, stepping inside with an air of determined curiosity. The atmosphere fluttered with suspense as the diner's occupants exchanged glances. Would this new arrival bring yet another challenge or an unexpected ally? The tension built, a fresh wave of energy swirling among them. Everyone felt it, the shift, the anticipation. What would this mean for Michael's journey and the fragile connections beginning to form? As the stranger moved closer, an almost electric curiosity crackled in the air. What would happen next? The stranger paused near the counter, scanning the faces of the diner patrons. A young woman, perhaps in her 30s, with tousled hair and wearing a tattered denim jacket, exuded a unique mix of confidence and trepidation. Michael held his breath, wondering how her presence might tilt the delicate balance of emotions in the room. "Yeah, it is," Clara finally answered, her voice regaining strength. "We're just talking about the past and how we all want to change." The newcomer's brow furrowed slightly as she stepped forward, a hint of disbelief flickering across her face. "Change? How does one even begin with that?" Michael felt the eyes of the diner shift to him once more. This was the moment. "It starts with being honest," he said, lifting his chin. "All of us have something we're carrying, something that weighs us down. But talking about it, sharing it, brings us closer together." The newcomer crossed her arms, still skeptical, yet intrigued. "And what makes you think anyone here wants to share their burdens? Sometimes it hurts too much." Margaret, though quiet until now, took a step beside Michael, her presence reassuring. "But hiding them only makes it darker," she countered gently. "By sharing, you let the light in. It's scary, yes, but also freeing." A ripple of murmurs washed over the room again, moments of nods and hesitant agreement floating around the tables. Michael felt hope flutter in his chest. There was a shift happening, and it felt monumental. "All right, let's say we're willing to try," the stranger said slowly, letting the words sink in. "What's the first step?" Clara chimed in. "Maybe we start with just one story. It can be small, something that won't hurt too much. I could go first." Before she finished, Alex cut in, his voice hard and unyielding. "You really think a single story will fix anything? What if it just opens old wounds?" The air in the diner thickened with tension. Michael could feel his stomach twist. "No one's asking for fixing, Alex, just understanding. We need to hear each other. It's not about erasing the past, but confronting it." Margaret lifted her hand, gently laying it on Michael's arm. He looked down, then back at the group, his heart racing. "She's right. We won't be perfect, but we can try. maybe even help someone else feel understood. Slowly, Clara took a deep breath, ready to share. As her tale began to unfold, the room went quiet, each person riveted by her words, traveling through her struggles, her failures, and finally, her small victories. The atmosphere shifted again, this time carrying a weight of vulnerability that felt both heavy and liberating. It transformed the diner into a sanctuary, a safe place for confession. Michael felt the warmth of shared experience wrap around them all, creating an invisible bond. "I was 8 when my family fell apart," Clara said, emotions spilling over. "I often wondered if things would have been different if I had just been better, smarter." The newcomer listened intently, her expression softening as Clara's voice cracked. There it was, the moment of connection, palpable and moving. As Clara spoke, Michael could feel Alex's presence simmering beside him, tension still lurking in his expression. But something shifted. A glimmer of realization. Perhaps doubt about his earlier dismissals. When Clara finished, applause broke out. Soft at first, then louder as the others joined in, encouraging her. Michael found himself clapping too, feeling the rush of courage that came from shared honesty. But as the claps faded, Michael noticed the stranger shifting from foot to foot, biting her lip as if wrestling with a decision. "I have something to share too, if that's okay." The collective energy rushed back into the room. Michael nodded, inviting yet another voice into the fold. Who would have thought that a casual diner could transform into this? What stories would emerge next? How might they further bind or unravel the delicate web that was forming? As the stranger stepped forward, the air buzzed with anticipation. Would she weave hope, or reveal something even more profound? The moment hung in the air, electrifying and thick. The stranger took a deep breath, her chest rising as the noise of the diner faded away. Michael noticed her hands tremble slightly, and a part of him wanted to reach out and reassure her, but he held back, allowing her to find her footing. "My name is Jenna," she said, her voice steady yet quiet. "I moved to this town last year, hoping to start fresh after some stuff I've been trying to forget." She paused, looking down at the floor tiles as if they held the answers she needed. Michael could sense the weight of her words. The sincerity in her eyes drew everyone in. "I grew up in a world where everything was expected of me. Achievements, grades, future plans, a checklist that felt like a prison. I thought by fulfilling those expectations, I could find happiness," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "But when I reached the top, I realized I was more alone than ever. I didn't even know who I was anymore." A murmur of empathy rippled through the diners. Michael's heart ached for her. Jenna's struggles resonated so deeply with his own. He remembered the overwhelming burden of expectations from his family, always feeling like he was acting in someone else's play. Jenna took another deep breath. "So, I ran away from it all. I thought distancing myself would help. But the truth is, I was just hiding. Hiding from the guilt of leaving, the shame of not being perfect." Tears glistened in her eyes, and Michael could see her fighting against the tide of emotions. "I thought moving here would be different, but it's been hard. I kept thinking about how to change, but I didn't know where to start. Until I walked into this diner tonight." The warmth in the room grew. They were all leaning in, captivated. Jenna smiled lightly, as if she were experiencing a little epiphany. "I realize now, change starts with accepting the messiness of life. It's in the sharing that we confront our truths." The applause started again, this time louder and more fervent. Jenna's vulnerability had cracked something open, and the support surged like a wave. Michael felt the tears stinging his own eyes. It was incredible how this gathering of strangers was becoming a sanctuary for healing. Alex, who had been silent through Jenna's tale, finally spoke. "You're right. It's about facing our truths. I've been too afraid to admit. I'm angry all the time. Angry at myself, at my past. And somehow I thought that would shield me." His confession stunned the room into silence. The weight of his words lingered, and Jenna stepped forward to him, her eyes shimmering with understanding. "It's okay to be angry," she said softly. You're not alone in that. Michael felt a shift in Alex's demeanor, a softening. This was the conversation they all needed to have, to break down walls they had built around themselves. It was no longer just about sharing stories, but about shedding layers, revealing the truth beneath. As the clapping faded, Margaret leaned in and said warmly, "We all have our battles, but can we take this one step further? Can we support each other beyond these walls? What if we turned this diner into a home for honesty and healing?" An excited buzz flickered through the crowd. Jenna beamed and a spark of hope illuminated the room as people began to exchange glances. "Let's do it," Michael said, his voice clear. "Let's commit to coming together, to sharing our stories even more openly, even next week." The enthusiasm was palpable. They all seemed ready to transform individual stories into shared paths towards healing. But just as an agreement started to form in hushed voices, the door swung open with a loud creak, drawing all attention. A familiar face stepped inside, wearing an expression of shock. "What's going on here?" the newcomer exclaimed, eyes widening at the sight of so many engaged and connected. The atmosphere changed instantly, a ripple of uncertainty flowing through the group. Who was this person, and how would they fit into this unfolding narrative? The room fell silent as everyone turned to face the newcomer. The familiar face belonged to Claire, a local real estate agent whose smile had graced many community gatherings. But tonight, her expression was anything but cheerful. It was a mix of surprise and confusion, and Michael sensed an awkward tension rising. He glanced around, noticing that even Jenna seemed taken aback. Her moment of triumph dimmed slightly by the sudden interruption. "Claire, we were just exploring some things, sharing stories," Jenna stammered, her earlier confidence flickering uncertainly. Claire stepped further into the diner, glancing around at the faces watching her. "I didn't expect to find everyone here," she said, her voice regaining some steadiness. "I thought it would be just another quiet evening. I didn't know we were starting some kind of group." Michael could feel the shift in energy. Some onlookers exchanged glances while others seemed to relax, sensing Claire's presence might lead to a lighter atmosphere. But Jenna, visibly shaken, held her ground. "It's not just any group. We're trying to support each other, to be honest." Claire's brows furrowed and she crossed her arms. "Honestly? That sounds like a lot. What's wrong with just, living life without dissecting it like this?" The question hung in the air, and Michael's heart raced. The tension tightened as the group held their breath, unsure of how to respond. Alex, who had opened himself up earlier, shifted uncomfortably. He finally spoke. "Maybe living isn't enough anymore. Sometimes we need to face what we're really feeling." "Isn't that the truth?" Jenna added, her voice firm despite the tremor beneath. It was clear she refused to back down. "Just living was my mistake. I bottled up emotions until they nearly consumed me. Now, I refuse to ignore them." Claire hesitated, her eyes darting back to Jenna, and Michael noticed the internal conflict flickering across her face. One part of her seemed alarmed by this openness, while another part appeared curious, almost drawn to it. "And what makes you think sharing is going to help?" Claire challenged, though the hardness in her tone began to soften. "Because it does," Michael said suddenly, his voice steady. "Jenna's right. We've spent too long wearing masks. This place can be a safe space. We all come with our own issues. We can find healing and support if we just talk." The crowd murmured in agreement, and Jenna looked at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. Claire took a step back, absorbing the atmosphere. The uncertainty still lingered, but something about the unity in the diner felt palpable, like an invitation extended to her. "Okay, so what do you want from me?" Claire finally asked, a hint of vulnerability creeping through her initial hesitation. "Just be yourself," Jenna replied, her voice gentle. "Join us. Share if you want or listen. There's no pressure. We're just trying to recognize our truths." There was a faint smile tugging at the corners of Claire's lips. "All right then," she said, her tone thawing. "Maybe I could listen in on this group you've got going." The collective sigh of relief was almost audible, and the weight of openness began to settle again. Michael couldn't help but feel the shift among them, like a blanket warming up in a chilly room. As conversations began to pick up again, New energy enveloped the diner. Jenna seemed like a light, and it pulsed through everyone, including Claire, who now stood on the edges, more intrigued than skeptical. And then, in the middle of the warmth, Claire's phone buzzed loudly, shattering the moment. She pulled it from her pocket, her face draining of color as she stared at the screen. Every smile faded as unease filled the room again. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "What's the matter?" Jenna asked, concern etching her features. Claire shook her head, a whisper barely escaping her lips. "It's about my husband." A feeling of dread settled over the diner, heavy and suffocating. What news could she be delivering? Michael felt the connection they had just started to forge hang in the balance, teetering on the edge of calamity. What was going on behind closed doors that none of them knew about? As Michael watched her face twist in fear, he realized the evening was only just beginning. Claire clutched her phone tightly, her knuckles white against the screen, and for a brief moment, it felt as if time froze. The air thickened with anxiety, each person holding their breath, waiting for her to share the news. Jenna moved closer, instinctively reaching for Claire's arm, trying to offer silent support. I just got a message from a friend," Claire stammered, her voice trembling. "She saw something that... It's hard to explain." Michael focused on her eyes. They were filled with worry, flickers of fear dancing across her usually composed face. "Claire, is he okay?" he asked, concern squeezing his chest tight. She swallowed hard, struggling to form her thoughts. "It's about my husband, Tom. He's been at some events, business meetings, and it seems like things aren't what they seem." The words tumbled out, and the collective gasp from the group echoed like a heavy bell tolling. "What do you mean?" Alex pressed gently, sensing the delicate balance of emotions in the room. "What did she see?" Claire's breath hitched. "There are photos online. Of him. With someone else." The confession hung heavy in the air, a dark cloud overshadowing the camaraderie blossoming just moments before. Jenna's grip tightened on Claire's arm, her own heart racing. "Are they recent?" she asked softly, wanting to provide comfort while bracing for the possibility of heartbreak. Claire shook her head, biting her lip. "I don't know. I haven't looked further. But if it's true, it means everything is a lie, you know? I thought..." Her voice cracked. "I thought we had a good marriage." Michael felt a surge of empathy and frustration. Claire had always presented such a perfect image of her life, and now, standing in front of them, she felt as shattered as the plate glass windows outside. "Claire, you don't have to go through this alone," he said gently. The warmth of the diner started to fade as Claire's story unfolded. Faces turned somber, reality crashing their little bubble of hope. "I don't even know if I should confront him," Claire admitted, tears pooling in her eyes. "What if it's just a misunderstanding?" "What if it's not?" Jenna said, her voice steady but concerned. "You deserve to know the truth, whatever it may be. Holding on to feelings like this, it will only eat you alive." The room remained silent, the weight of her words resonating with each person present. They all knew the dangers of suppressing the truth, the way it could manifest into something toxic if left unchecked. Michael found his own heart racing. Could they really heal with such a dark cloud looming over them? Just then, Claire's phone buzzed again, louder this time, and she glanced nervously at it. "It's him," she whispered. "Tom." Everyone felt the shift as all eyes turned to her, an unspoken question hanging in the atmosphere. Would she answer? Would she invite this storm into their fragile gathering? Taking a deep breath, Claire stared down at her screen. I can't do this alone." "I'll be right here, Claire. Whatever happens, we've got your back," Michael reassured her, feeling a rush of determination. With a nod that seemed to say more than words could express, she accepted the call. The diner felt electric, every person holding their breath, waiting to see what would unfold. Claire's voice trembled as she answered, and in that moment, everything hinged on the words spoken. As Claire listened to Tom's voice on the other end, her face shifted through a series of emotions: confusion, hurt, anger. The truth of the situation loomed heavily, threatening to pull them all under. And then, out of the murmur of voices, a sharp clarity hit Michael. What if this is the moment that brings us all together or tears us apart? The silence deepened, waiting for Claire's next words. And Michael couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was uncovered next would ripple through their lives in ways they couldn't yet fathom. Claire's eyes widened as she listened to Tom on the other end, the tension thickening in the air like an impending storm. Michael could feel the weight of every gaze fixed on her, anticipation mixing with anxiety. "What's happening?" Jenna whispered, instinctively leaning closer as if her presence could shield Claire from the emotional fallout. It took a moment for Claire to gather her thoughts. She bit her lip, her eyes flickering between fear and determination. "Tom, I need to know the truth," she finally said, her voice steadying as she pushed through the fear. "What's going on with you?" The diners leaned in, holding their collective breath, hearts racing, each face tight with concern. Michael watched Claire's expression transform, confusion melting into resolve. "Are you seeing someone else?" she demanded, the strength in her voice surprising even herself. It felt like a dam breaking, words tumbling forth, unearthing everything she held inside. As Tom responded, Claire's expression darkened. "No, don't you dare lie to me," she shouted, her voice cracking under the pressure of emotion. The honesty was wrathful and raw, and it echoed through the diner like a battle cry. Michael felt something shift in the room. The fighting spirit in Claire ignited everyone's hearts, including his own. "We're all here for you, Claire," he encouraged, taking a step closer, urging her not to back down. She glanced around, and in the eyes of her friends, she found strength. "If you are seeing someone else, this is my first chance to talk about it," she continued, the tremor in her voice still palpable but blended with an undercurrent of strength. "I refuse to be left in the dark again." In that moment, the diner felt less like a stage for a drama, and more like a sanctuary for truth. Michael could see the others rallying around Claire. The diner transformed from a mere gathering place to a community of shared support. Vulnerability filled the room like a breath of fresh air, sharp, yet invigorating. "Listen, I want to support you, Claire," Jenna offered, her voice calm and soothing. "Whatever happens, you don't have to go through this alone." Claire nodded, her resolve strengthening. "I just want honest conversations from now on. No more hiding, no more whispers." The phone call hung on a knife's edge, and Michael's heart raced with anticipation. Whatever was said next felt monumental, a tipping point for all of them, personal demons laid bare in real time. Claire listened intently, and Michael could sense the energy shift around her as Tom responded. "It's not what you think." But the words hadn't fully left his lips before Claire interjected, "It never is with you." The fire in her voice echoed in the diner, and everyone exchanged glances, exhilarated and burdened all at once. "Sometimes, love is messy," Alex murmured, surprisingly reflective, drawing some attention. "I've been through it. It's not easy, but honesty is everything." "Exactly," Claire said, still holding the phone, her voice firm. "Don't you dare underestimate what our love has built." The tension in the diner thickened with every heartbeat, but amid the emotional tempest, Margaret felt a flicker of something transformative. She squeezed Michael's hand, feeling a communal pulse run through them all. Then Claire's face blanched as Tom's response floated through the air, uncertain, distant, a sense of disbelief overwhelming her. "I can explain," yet it didn't matter. She pulled the phone away, breaking free from the exchanges, and turned to everyone gathered. "You know what? No one deserves to be left guessing. I want to stand here and demand respect, for myself and for the joy that we can all share as a community. All I need is a moment where I can be completely open." That moment was here, the collective courage of the diner rallying around her. Michael stepped forward, feeling powered by the eruption of honesty. And all of us deserve that chance, to be who we are, no matter our pasts or the awkwardness of today. We're redefining the way we support one another. A chorus of agreement swept across the room. "Yes." More voices joined in. each person ready to share their own whispers of doubt, fears, and commitment. I think we should all share something, not just in support of Claire, but as a pledge to be real with one another from now on. Jenna's voice rang out, glimmering with hope. Tell our truths, unleash our burdens, Margaret echoed, a tear of joy spilling down her cheek at the solidarity enveloping them. With that, the diner became a sanctuary for stories. One by one they began to share their struggles, courageous confessions enveloping the group. Secrets turned into fuel for healing, wounds transformed into badges of honor. And Claire, as she wiped away tears, felt a surge of power flooding her being. This was the moment she needed. As laughter and shared stories floated through the air, the heaviness began to lift. It wasn't just about Claire anymore. It became a collective healing, a merging of histories and battles, an opportunity for everyone to be heard and accepted. And with each passing moment, Michael felt a profound shift within himself too. The whispers of his past had faded, replaced by the resounding chorus of voices who understood that healing was possible. Claire, Michael said softly, once again meeting her gaze, we'll face whatever comes next together, just like we did here. The unity solidified among them, strong and undeniable, transforming the diner into a lighthouse for vulnerability and truth. With unwavering resolve, they began to light the path for others outside who still felt lost, a message echoing loud, "You are not alone." They were a tapestry of lives woven together by shared experiences, each one brighter for the journey, and they all knew that they had earned a powerful new beginning together. As the conversations continued to swell within the diner, Michael looked around at the connection blossoming, each story binding them closer. In that moment, life felt expansive, full of promise, and the ghosts of their pasts no longer held power. Together, they had ignited something beautiful, a community dedicated to honesty, connection, and a brighter tomorrow. Don't wait. This is your moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that heal hearts and unite communities. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, pushing these empowering tales forward. Comment below with your reactions. What did you feel? Let's spark a conversation that carries this journey even further. And don't forget to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, because together, we can change lives. Don't wait, not even one more second to spread the light. Only true fans understand the weight of these words.